A Journey to the Center of the Earth. Chapter 8. Voices at last! No words in any language could describe my utter horror. I was buried alive, alone, 100 miles inside the earth, with nothing to look forward to except death. The slow, horrible death brought on by hunger and thirst. I crawled about, feeling the dry, hard rock. How did I lose the course of the stream? I asked myself over and over. It was now clear that when we stopped a while back, the water of the Hansbach must have flowed into another tunnel, while I, unknowingly, had taken a different path. To what depths had my uncle and Hans gone? Had they gone forward or back? Lost! 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 I cried out, and the walls echoed my words back to my ears like a cruel reminder of my fate. I was lost at a depth which, to my wild mind, appeared to be without measure. Those 100 miles of the crust of the earth above me weighed upon my shoulders so heavily that I felt myself crushed by the awful weight. It was indeed a position to drive the sanest man to madness. "Oh, uncle!" and was my tortured cry. "Oh, dear Gretchen, will I ever see you again?" When I realized that no further aid could be expected from man, and knowing that I, myself, could do no more for my own rescue, I asked assistance from heaven. I prayed. This prayer brought me a certain measure of calm, and I began to take an intelligent look at the situation I was in. I had about 3 days' food with me, and my water bottle was full. But one fact remained clear. I had to find my companions. But which course should I take? Should I go up or down? I finally decided that it was best to retrace my steps in upward direction. By doing this carefully, I hoped to reach the point where I had left the stream and entered the wrong tunnel. There, I would surely find the rippling Hansbach again, and if need be, the pathway to the surface. After a slight meal, I began my upward journey. I looked at the projection of rocks I had passed, hoping to see familiar signs. But I was soon forced to admit that the path would never take me back where I had lost my uncle and Hans. The path I was climbing led me to a solid wall of rock. I could go neither left nor right nor up. I collapsed on the hard granite floor. My last hope was gone. I would never find the Hansbach, or my uncle, or Hans. I was doomed to die in this rock tomb. No words could describe my despair. I tried to cry aloud, but my only hoarse, animal sounds passed from my parched lips. Then another horror possessed me. In falling down, I had damaged my lamp. Its light got dimmer and dimmer until, at last, with a final tremble, it went out. The last bit of light I was ever destined to see. A wild cry for help passed my lips. Ah! But there was no answer in return. Madness must have taken possession of me. I got up and began running downwards, screaming at the top of my lungs. I roared, I howled, I yelled. I crashed into the pointed rocks along the walls. I fell over and over and picked myself up, all covered in blood. Hour and after hour I ran this way, until at last, having exhausted my strength, I fell into a heavy mass on the side of a tunnel and lost consciousness. When I came back to a sense of life at last, I found myself lying in a heap in the dark. Tears were running down my face, and blood was running from many parts of my body. Why wasn't I dead? I wondered, and this realization that I was alive gave me some hope. Then, just as I was about to pass out again, my ears suddenly picked up a deep, rumbling sound coming from somewhere in the rock above me. I listened carefully for many minutes, hoping to hear the sound again, hoping to discover its origin. An explosion of some gas? The fall of a rock? Suddenly, my ear leaned against the wall accidentally, and I heard it again. It sounded like distant voices. "It cannot be!" I cried. "It must be a hallucination!" I listened to the wall again. Yes, it was human voices. There was no doubt in my mind. The voices must belong to my uncle and Hans. "Help!" I cried at the top of my voice. "Help! I am dying!" I listened for a response, but there was only silence. I began to fear that my weakened voice could not reach my companions. "It must be them!" I cried. "What other men would be buried 100 miles under the earth?" I crawled as close to the wall as I could, and in my loudest voice I called, "Uncle! Hans!" Several seconds went by. They seemed like centuries. Then suddenly these words reached my eager ears. "Harry, my boy! Is that you?" There was a short delay between question and answer. Yes. Yes." "Where are you?" "Lost." "And your lamp?" "Out. But the guiding stream, the Hansbach, it is lost." "Keep up your courage, Harry. We will do our best to reach you." "Don't leave me, uncle," I cried. "Keep speaking to me." "Keep up your courage," my uncle answered. "We've been searching for you both upward and downward in this tunnel. I feared we had lost you forever. I begun to give up all hope. We were talking now because of some strange sound arrangement in the tunnels. We may actually be far apart, for our voices are traveling along the tunnel walls. But do not fear, my boy. We will find you." "Uncle," I said, my heart beating madly, "we should try to find out how far apart we are." "Yes, of course," he called. "Do you have your watch at hand?" I asked. "I do," he answered. "Take it in your hand and call my name. Be sure to note the exact second you speak. I will answer you as soon as I hear your voice. Then, note the exact second that my voice reaches you." "Very good," he said. "I will record the time it takes for my sound to reach you and return, and I shall figure out the distance between us. I'm ready to say your name now." I put my ear to the wall. As soon as I heard the word Harry come to my ear, I repeated it to the wall. Then I waited. 40 seconds, called my uncle. "It took 40 seconds. 20 seconds each way. Now, figuring that sound travels 1,020 feet for each second, we get 20,400 feet, about 5 miles. The words fell on me like a death song. 5 miles, I muttered in despair. "We shall get to you," my uncle called. "Have no fear." "How do you know whether to go upwards or downwards?" I asked. "We must descend," he answered. "We are in separate tunnels sloping downward. A vast cavern. If you can walk, move in a downward direction. We will surely meet." These words gave me some courage. I rose to my feet, but I could not walk. So I dragged myself along. The slope suddenly became very steep, and I was fearful of falling. I clutched the rock walls. I threw myself backwards, but it was in vain. In an instant, I was dropping into a dark tunnel, almost a well. My head hit a rock, and I lost consciousness. As far as I was concerned, death had claimed me for his own.